So first of all, thank you so much for having us here today. Both Michelle and I are super excited to share this experience with you. I think what's really, when we sort of thought about the topic of societies and communities and healing, it really sort of spoke to us as being patterns of belonging in so many ways. We are, as you say, social beings, and our living circles, are places where we can heal in our communities, and our systems that clearly are sort of falling apart in many ways can be also healed. So to sort of set the scene, really, Michelle and I have designed this not to be just a presentation, but actually something that you can all have a lived experience of a circle on a mini scale, because ordinarily we'd probably have a good 90 minutes where we would gather, whether it's online or in local communities. And we're going to really look at, before we sort of start, one question really to sort of start kind of having a sense of, when we talk about systems, I invite you to, because we're kind of a little bit limited in terms of how we would normally do that, we would do it into a conversation, but I invite you to kind of maybe use a chat option to kind of post through your answers. Keep it short. When you talk about system, what would you say one word would reflect on what comes to your mind when you talk about systems? I'm now trying to see that I can see the chat as well. Michelle, are you able to see the chat?
I am able to see it, and we're getting some responses through. Interconnection is one of them.
Thank you.
Any of our other participants? Frustration is another one. Support.
Yeah. Ones I often hear as well is restrictedness, kind of strict boundaries, restriction in some ways. Yes, so that kind of some of the themes that come up really. So the other thing we wouldn't ordinarily do is take us through a meditation to just settle. So with that, I'm going to do a very short one just to settle us into this part of the session. And because the rest of the kind of presentation that we have or lived experience, it will be a little bit like a meditation, through this experience. So if you just take a moment and just to ground ourselves, and whatever you feel safe, whether just eyes open, eyes closed, either way, you get to decide what feels safe for you. Take a moment to take a few breaths in, just noticing where your breath currently is. We are not here to change it, just notice where it is. And just notice your feet grounded, you're on the floor, sense of connection to the ground. And maybe just sense of roots, like energy connected to the Mother Earth. They're like a little soft threads, like shoots reaching down. And as we take each breath, we can maybe perhaps notice that our breath can deepen a little bit deeper into our bellies. And with every out breath, for the moment, we can just exhale what doesn't belong here in this moment. Also notice the sense of connectedness to the divine creation behind life, the life force. Everybody's going to have a different name for that. Somebody might call it gods, someone just divine creator, energy behind life. Sense of that with the breath in, how the energy comes and flows into our being. We recognize in this moment that we are connected to the Mother Earth and to the energy behind life. We have been held and supported and guided every step of the way. So hopefully that has given us a little bit of sense of quietness in our body. And noticing the beating heart. And today, invitation is going to be listen and see and hear through the eyes, ears of our heart. So let's just take a moment to start feeling our hands and feet again and slowly bring ourselves back to the room. As I start introducing really how this little flow is going to go. Dear Michelle is going to take us through looking at systems and design thinking, as systems as being not being static but alive and interconnected and responsive, and design thinking as a way to observe whole systems, their functions, patterns, and shifts. Systems exist at every scale, ecologically, familial, personal, social. And questioning inherited and maybe rigid patriarchal structures in contrast with nature-based organic systems, and systems as living mirrors that reflect back hidden beliefs, inherited patterns, and unspoken rules. Well, after that, I'm going to take us into the spiral nature of evolutionary change. How does it all really happen? Systems are not linear. They're spiral, expanded, release, return, and adaptable. And the alignment with Root to Rise Heron's journey and inner transformation arcs, drawing the parallels between all these different maps that exist. And we might not always be familiar about all of them. And the invitation to let go of what no longer serves, to compost and regenerate. And cycles of integration and emergence within the self and the wider system as well. How do we all relate to all of that? And ultimately working and moving towards harmonization, and the spiral as a map of continuous becoming, not a path of fixing. So with that, I would love to hand over to Michelle to take us through her part.
Thank you very much. So I guess I'd like to talk about, as I'll introduce and Ivana stressed, my passion at this point is planting food forests. And I have become pretty obsessed with forest ecosystems, if I'm honest, and marrying that in with some of my, I guess, past history of systems thinking, lean enterprise management, design thinking. And what I found so beautiful is that the forest provides us a beautiful framework, a living systems map for us to understand ourselves as a system, our community as a system, the broader ecology that we live within as a living system. So I would like to invite you, if you can go to the next slide, please, to start to imagine with me that you are flying above a forest, a beautiful forest. You see the sweeping green canopies of trees, the tall mother trees who have held the place for centuries. Beneath them, the layers of life that thrive, the fruiting trees, the berry bushes, the vines that climb and bind, the herbs that heal, the ground covers that protect the soil, and the deep, deep roots that draw from the hidden waters. This forest is more than a collection of plants. It's a living, breathing system. Each layer has a role. Each tree, each shrub, each vine, each root, they are in conversation, sometimes through the underground mycelium web, sometimes through the air, by using chemicals or pheromones to send messages to each other. This is whole systems thinking. When one area is depleted, the others share resources. When one tree is under stress, the others know. The system is more than the sum of its parts. The magic is always in the relationships. The magic is always in the connectedness. And I love, Al, that you had put that your word that came to mind for systems is interconnectedness. So I'd like to pose another question to you all. As you reflect on your social systems, as you reflect on your social circles, where do you feel the true magic of those relationships sits right now for you?
While we're waiting for any answers, Michelle, what would you say yours does?
Yeah, and so for me, I think the magic relationships that I have been treasuring at this point is co-creation. It is the link between two minds. It is, understanding that we play different roles, we come with different strengths, we come with different skills. But it is in that relationship, it is in that communication, in co-creation that allows us to build. So for me, it is the relationship of co-creation.
Well, I would have to echo that myself too, probably at the moment, given that we are on this, where we are on our spiral. Thank you.
Anyone else in our audience have any reflections?
Not at this stage. Oh, here we go. We do actually. My apologies. From Julia, I feel magic in the fact that despite our busy lives, the challenges and suffering in the world and infinity of the university, we have found each other and continue to love and care for one another. And then we got from Eleftheria, the relationships which nourish and care. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. And that's exactly it, right? It's this constant give and take with these relationships. And I see Violetta has said that she feels held and taking care for our countryside and in the villages. Beautiful. So actually held by the relationship of nature, which I think is often a relationship we forget about. So thank you for bringing that in, Violetta. That's beautiful. Liliana, even everyday encounters where you feel a human exchange, absolutely, you know, that relationship with our community, whether it's the person at your checkout counter or if it's, you know, your neighbors, you pass them on the street. I think that's a beautiful relationship to think about when we think about our community systems. Now imagine that you are a bird circling above the forest. From here, you see the canopy. You see all the different patterns, the treetops that leave light gaps known as crown shyness, as you can see in the picture there. This allows the light to reach through the canopy to the plants below. You see where the water pools and where the water runs dry. You see where things are thriving and where things are off balance. This is design thinking. It is the ability to see the patterns and not just the form. It's not reacting to the surface. It's not just trimming the branches of a problem, but it's really tracing it back down to the roots, to understanding what is causing it. Finding one gentle shift, like maybe redirecting water or planting a companion species or returning the wolves to the banks of the river, that will help us regenerate the whole, regenerate the forest. You start to realize that this is how all life works. Your body is a system, your family is a system, your business is a system, your community is a system, your heart is a system. What affects one part will ripple out into the whole. So as we trace back, I guess, our thinking, our thoughts down to our roots, what is one small shift that we think we can make in our circles, in our social circles, that might allow us to nourish the whole, that might allow us to have more flow, either for you or for your social groups?
Yeah. I would say for me is kind of linking it to, I suppose, to you know, understanding of mental health and what might get in the way of us kind of forging more balance or harmony is, I suppose, patterns of things that I have learned behavior, learned ways of thinking that get in the way. And certainly in our experience of weeks shaping this experience, one that came up strongly was imposter syndrome. My goodness, you know, who are we to even present this? You know, and so yeah, so that's been really strong coming through for me.
I really love that. I really love that. And you know, I'd say, like you say, it definitely came through for me as well, is very much that imposter syndrome. For me, some of the patterns that I think we often get stuck in are the structural patterns, you know, or the process, or we just do it like this because it's always been done like this. Or, you know, the structure's already there, so I'm just going to fit into it. And I think for me, one shift that we can make is to maybe just rest, to maybe pull back from those systems and not feel like we need to be forced into them, but maybe take a different perspective, a different look, give ourselves some time, some space to maybe react differently. to maybe act differently. So for me, I think a big shift I've been trying my best to make is to not just rush forward always, but to maybe allow for space, allow for some time before any reactions.
Eleftheria say to engage more outside the comfort zone courageously, absolutely. And Liliana, contribute to the circles and system with our strong suits and encourage each other to go out of their comfort zones. Oh gosh, that does very much, yeah, speaks to this. Letter, we need capacity building to dare to walk that path. And Liliana, examples are big motivation.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that Violetta on the we need capacity building. And I think, maybe the question you posed earlier to Jose was, do you feel that our society is equipped for the space to handle the emotions and and I often feel we haven't been taught to have that capacity. We've very much been, I guess, the old paradigm is that belongs behind closed doors. It's not for society to share, and I do think holding circles like this helps us build that capacity, which is so beautiful. So thank you for bringing that in. Now let's drop down into the soil. Feel how nothing is wasted in a forest. Old leaves become mulch, fallen fruit feeds the ground, death becomes nourishment. This is circular economy thinking. There is no such thing as waste. Everything is part of a regenerative cycle. So I ask you, what pattern or habit in our social circles feels ready to be composted to make way for the new?
Competition.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
In harmony,
And how crazy that it came
absolutely.
in twice.
Silence. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And what beautiful golden threads we're seeing here woven together, and I do think that the old paradigm of competition is a huge blocker for us. It teaches us to hoard and hold on and to gather versus this view of circular economy, of being able to release, allow it to become food for something else, so that the new can flourish, so that we can be in cooperation together, we can be sharing, we can be co-creating, which is so beautiful.
And then
And Juliana, your silence,
and the shame
please
from
go ahead.
and the shame from Julie also feel like interconnected, don't they, Michelle?
Absolutely, absolutely. So interconnected, and I think we often do sit in silence because of shame, which I think, as you were saying earlier, Julie, like that shame almost pushes you deeper into that silence. Whereas as soon as you give that shame a voice and others resonate that back to you, it really does help you move out of that difficult emotion, which is so beautiful. So thank you for bringing that in.
Out of the isolation, because it's the one that Julie sort of mentioned, isn't it? How that shame and silence grows that isolation. And yeah, we are definitely ready and to compost those.
Absolutely. Now listen closely to the resonance in a forest. Bees find flowers through electromagnetic communication. Rain comes when it is called by the trees. Fungi grow and decompose where they are needed. Each being attunes to the others, just like tuning forks in a room. This is sympathetic resonance. When you are rooted in your own true nature, you attract the right people and the right ideas that resonate with you. You start attracting what resonates with your system, which will then nourish the whole. So again, the question I ask you is, where in your community life do you feel resonance? What sense of being are you attuning to? Where are you feeling supported? Where are you feeling in rhythm with others?
I love this question. Well, for me, it's easy. I've been part of the Root to Rise facilitation course and community has been absolutely transformational for me. It's shifted things for me, leap bounds. Yeah, really supported each other and stuff. Yeah. What about you, Michelle?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Being blessed to be part of this circle of women, which, Al was wonderful in creating that space of rhythm where we could all attune and be called together. I must say also for me, in this eco-consciousness movement, I think there is very much a feel within the societal context. If I think about my society as my online society or my immediate community here in South Africa, it seems like a little bit after COVID, there was this awakening to we are part of our ecosystem. So I'd say for me, I've been feeling quite attuned within the eco-consciousness that I've been feeling.
And I have to say, I echo in terms of eco-civilization. I've only attended a few rounds of webinars, and there's deep resonance to my experience as well. Then we have from Alicia with my host Picasso. Yes, it's news to you, but yes, we so know, don't we? Yeah, and from Violetta, wherever challenged by the natural forces, community comes together. We are good also having fun. We are yet to learn how to do so in our day-to-day life activities. Yeah, and Julie at my local compost center. Yeah, and my dog from Alicia. And for me, my family, my family, my children and my husband, Eleftheria, in communities where we share values and find a connection points in communities where we don't share values.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I'd love to just comment on Violetta, on your chat here, that whenever we are challenged by natural forces or even by unnatural forces, community has this beautiful way of coming together. And what I have really loved learning about as my focus has shifted a little bit to indigenous cultures and ancient wisdom is the beautiful ability of these ancient cultures to come together in community to have fun, to celebrate, and I wish we would find ways to bring the ceremony and to bring these little acts of having fun, of celebration into our day-to-day lives. I think, if you reflect back on some of these ancient cultures, it was, almost a ceremony for everything. It's harvest time, it's planting time, it's winter time, it's full moon time, and it was this ability to bring the day-to-day celebrations and to bring people together, which I think is such a beautiful thing for you to bring in. So thank you for that.
When you sort of talk about that, what that means, like what I recognize in all of that is like there is a nature's design at play that calls us, like, right, to gather in those ways. And so all of those ancient civilizations and communities and indigenous communities, the way that they've got structure, let's say structure, perhaps a framework in which they work is based in nature, isn't it? And there appears to be almost like a rhythm to it, natural rhythm to it.
Absolutely, and what a great example of the system with a heartbeat, which is so beautiful. And I see Elle has put here, in communities where we share values and find a connection points, which is absolutely so true, and I do think we resonate, or we attract in people that have similar values to us. So I think, what I loved as part of your course was that deep dive into understanding what our own values are, and not just falling for others' values as we go. So thank you for bringing that in. That is beautiful. And here lies the truth. You are not outside of the forest. You are the forest. Your breath is part of the global climate. Your nervous system mirrors the health of your family, your community. Your inner forest reflects and shapes the larger ecosystem. You are a microcosm of the macrocosm. As within, so without. When you shift, the entire system shifts with you. So the last question I have for you is, what is one quality of belonging or care you'd like to embody more, so that it ripples outwards into all of your social systems? And Rajni, I see you've said empathy. Absolutely. I think that is one of the deepest ones, is, not needing to feel sympathy, not needing to be like, oh, I've also been there, but being able to feel empathy and being able to see what others are going through is really such a beautiful one.
We've got also radical acceptance from Julie, and surrender from Violetta, which also definitely speak to that.
Absolutely. And actually, just before this, we pulled cards for Ivana and I leading into this circle today, and the first card was birthing, and both of us absolutely felt that, with any new thing coming into being, there are some pains, some pangs that kind of, I guess, preempt the beauty that arrives. The other card I pulled was fairy magic, and I was like, fairy magic is usually something's gonna, pop out of the woodwork. There's gonna be some surprises, and I thought this morning, oh, today is not the day for fairy magic. Within 5 minutes, all of our electricity dropped, lost all Wi-Fi signal, went outside, and they repairing emergency repairs in the signal, in the electricity in our whole area and surrounds. And for me, the message that just kind of kept coming through and through was surrender. Just surrender. What is meant to be will be. Just surrender. So Violetta, thank you very much. I think surrender is one of those that, I've needed to work on quite a lot and embody a bit more. And I think that leads so nicely into trust from Eleutheria, because you can only surrender when you trust that you will be held. So again, beautiful threads that are coming through here.
And also love from Liliana, active listening. I love the magic of that, what you brought, Liliana. Yeah. I have also pulled some cards. What might support that? And these cards are so beautiful because they give us the old sort of trigger statements that we would sort of normally say, right? That we need to transform into something else. So from I can't do that to maybe truer statement, I am a light and I can. Step forward and be the bright light that you are. Serve your purpose to the world by sharing your amazing gifts. So it's just so, the synchronicity of this has just been just so beautiful, how the answers came in. So yeah, love that. So as we kind of, thank you so much, Michelle, for setting out the field, mapping it out for us from a kind of higher perspective. And now we move in and look at how change actually kind of happens and moves. And my job today will be to guide us through how living fields change and how they change round by round, like seasons, a spiral. So the invitation is really to listen, get curious, perhaps if there are things that we might have strong opinions about, sometimes it's welcome to just, can we put them aside for the moment to allow the capacity to perhaps hear something new that might support us to get into greater harmony. So spiral, not straight line. And the invitation is now to look at our own relationship to the different systems, to look at our own inner systems and how it relates to the outer systems. And what is it that we can perhaps do that can be a catalyst for greater change. So as we know, in forest, we do not see a ruler straight path from seed to oak. We see circles that do not repeat exactly, but each ring on the trunk is a new round. I see this is how nature beautifully reminds us of the spiral nature of change. Our schools, councils, clinics, or teams or families, or even our communities are like that. We meet the same themes again and again, but each time, either one of us not being the same, or not being in the same place, or the many moving pieces. So there is a question for you. In your chosen social systems, if we are to choose one for this purpose, just one social system to walk this through, what theme keeps coming back, but perhaps each time in a new way? As I was looking at that, reflecting, you know, I've got a family of 3 children, and one that often would come up was each term, the homework tension, or starting a new term, nerves would show up and tension. But each term would look different. We would all be in a different place. New age, new needs, and we're having new eyes. So I'm curious what might come up for you.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's maybe to build on your theme of new, is that as much as we don't feel like there's a lot of new, I also sometimes feel like there's constant new. And I do feel that the more I root into myself, you know, and spend more time knowing who I am, every time I'm facing this something new, I'm facing it with more strength. I'm facing it with more resilience. I'm facing it with more confidence, maybe because I have rooted into myself a little bit more. So for me, I loved how you said, we face these things or these patterns again, but always from a new space, which really resonated with me. I love Violetta's one here, do not lead. And I think that is so, so true, Yeah, who are we to lead at the end of the day? Everyone should be leading themselves, right? So, yeah, I really love that one, Violetta. Al has said transformation, death, and rebirth. Absolutely right. It is that constant cycle, needing to let go of the old to allow for the new to come in, which is really, really beautiful.
Julie's grief. I mean, on each round of it feels different. I'm sure we have all experienced grief in different shapes and forms, and it comes in different shapes and forms on each round. Yeah.
And Rajni, support, gratitude, new learning. Yeah, I really love that. For me, gratitude is a daily practice. But again, every day you face that practice, you're facing it a little bit differently than the day before. Yeah, and learning new always, you've learned so much before, yet when you face your new learnings, you're facing it in a new way. So I really love that.
And Alicia, I like what you put. People with different values and stuck in their old ways of competition. Absolutely. And even then, even let's say people can be stuck in their old ways of competition. We don't have. We are not victims of that. We can show up to that differently each time. I certainly have experienced that being a mother in a very leafy suburbs of London, Surrey, where it was keeping up with Joneses, kind of competition going down. And soon enough, I thought, what is this? I don't need to be part of that prevailing system in place, a social system in place, and how in the moment I did that, things shifted. Yeah, and people with different values, we learn so much from each other. We can expand on our values too. And Rajni, we are stuck in a pattern unless less lesson is learned. Yes, absolutely. It will keep on happening. Absolutely. That's what Michelle talked about, that nature being the mirror to us, reminding us, are you stuck here? Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Now we move to let's look at the spiral nature of the woodland field in early spring. One patch is breaking down into soil. Another lies quiet under leaf litter. Another shows tiny shoots. Well, we can also look at that. Our social systems are the same. Some parts need composting, some need a quiet season, and some are beginning to grow. So yes, we know that in terms of our social systems, but what our inner systems are equally facing that. So my question to you is, where is most energy now for you? Is it in composting, resting, or growing?
I guess for me, I like how you say that you can be in all the states at once. And sometimes I feel like I got, one foot in each state and needing to compost and grow all at the same time, And for me, I feel like I'm straddling the compost and grow, but maybe aching for a little bit of rest.
I love that. I love that. It's like a, let's take the weather. Beautiful. Yes. Yeah, for me, definitely there's been a lot of composting going on, and a lot of resting actually, but real thirst for growing and moving into the field. Ah, left area compost, almost complete. Into the growth. Yes, that's so cute. Absolutely. Yes.
And I see Julie resonating with some of my comments, being between rest and grow, but certainly moving into rest. I love that, and I think we do need to make space for that rest in order to allow for real growth, which is beautiful.
Some of them, looking at some of our social systems, like education system, for example, one of the things that I never agreed with overarching kind of advice from all of the teachers I have encountered on my journey as a mother, supporting my children through school system, was keep up your reading, make sure you do your timetables, holiday times. And I always disregarded that because it just didn't make sense. For me, it was really important for my children to just not to have to think about all of those things that sometimes were felt quite hard and difficult for them. And I just really wanted them to just enjoy themselves, rest and restore. And without a fail, each new term, given them that rest, has resulted in a huge step up in their abilities, and whether it was reading or timetables, whatever it was, but particularly it was surrounded around reading. And I can now say that because I've got 17-year-old and 13-year-old twin boys, that has worked, certainly for my children. And while it might not work for somebody else, just this idea of rest, how important it is, it's really illustrated that for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, if we extrapolate that out even into maybe our working systems these days and the always on culture of the digital nature of our systems these days, you're expected to almost respond immediately, even if it's in your evening hours or even if it is whatever, because, well, you get the email on your phone, and you're expected to always be in this grow state, in this go state. And I don't think we allow for space in our systems for compost and rest. But actually the huge growth spurts you get once you allow for those spaces is amazing. So
Indeed. Okay, well, let's move and talk a little bit more about compost. Compost is the art of release. In a school, this might be a meeting that no longer serves, or in a community group, it might be a form no one reads, or it might be a format that no longer resonates. So we honor what it gave and then return it to the soil so the whole can breathe. So this nourishes the whole by expanding the capacity to see what is new to emerge, and it feeds that. So my question to you is, name one thing your system could benefit from being ended that would nourish the whole. Something it may be in your system is ready to be released and let go.
Lavelle's comment, the stigma around mental health. And I absolutely think so. It's like the second you say mental health and people assume you're mentally unhealthy or that it's got a negative connotation to it always, you know. But for me, mental health should become like going to the gym, right? It's something you should be doing actively on a daily basis to keep yourself happy, you know? Actually, I don't like the gym. I like to yoga, but same practice, you know? It is something you should be doing on a daily basis or regularly to keep yourself in health. Versus the second you say mental health and people are like, oh no, something's wrong, you know, you need to speak to somebody, or you know, it's always got this negativity around it. And I think changing that stigma around it, yeah, would be so beautiful.
What I love about that is I have run a number of offers in schools with youth, calling Finding Your Spark. And one of the first things I would start those programs, often they were about 10 weeks long or 6 to 10 weeks, is look at exactly that. So how we started this this presentation circle today, we looked at the meaning of the word systems and what brings that for us. I started, okay, well, let's look at the word or 2 words or term mental health, and what does that mean to you? What do you know that to be? And without fail, mostly at the time, that was probably about 8 years ago when I started doing that, was conversation about anxiety, depression. It was all of those terminologies that are those areas that are kind of, that's where it was based. And I said, well, hold on a minute. I have asked you what mental health was, not what mental, disorder, whatever it is. And it was really fascinating to see how the word mental health, actually, descriptions that people that use, is not about mental health. And then what is the mental health, and the programs that I run were all about, well, let's explore what mental health is. If it is an anxiety, if it is an depression, what does it look like? And what are shifts that have happened have been extraordinary. Well, let's have a look at what other comments have we got, Michelle.
And I think that pulls in so nicely with Al saying, normalize mental well-being in communities rather, which I think is so beautiful. And what actually came up for me when you asked this question was perfectionism, or like that constant drive for perfectionism. And I think that ties in so nicely with Rajni's resentment. I think often, whether it's we're viewing others in a certain way and we're resentful towards that, or we're viewing what we could be or should be and we're not achieving that and we're resentful towards that. And with Julie's comment of the need to do it all by yourself, and I think it is often these themes of maybe something that is out there that is unattainable, versus us, maybe focusing a little bit internally and then using that sympathetic resonance to attract things in.
Beautiful, absolutely. I love that. And I love how all of this, sorry, I'm just lost my screen. Excuse me. Oh, I'm back. They all again come on a spiral. Each time we're going to see something a bit more deeper about each one of those. And the other one that comes up for me is, I call it comparatitis. comparing, isn't it? Yeah. Keeping up with Joneses, for sure. Fantastic.
And the letters has said, keeping relationships that suck the energy out of me.
Oh.
Have no liberty to say no.
Oh, yes.
And I think we've all got those relationships. Yeah, and I guess it's that finding how you can have the liberty, have the power to say no. Because if it is sucking energy more than it's giving, you got to figure out how you can cut that cord in whatever way. Go on Al's Boundaries workshop there. It's very helpful.
Yes, absolutely. Healthy boundaries workshop for sure. Thank you. Okay. Well, with that, let's move into rest. Some things are not ready to be pushed. And a pilot program that might need time, or a role that is waiting for the right person, or resting ground, we often see as a failure, when actually now learning it's not. It's how the soil rebuilds. Nature shows us how that happens and reminds us that that is true for us too. So, question from me to you is, what could take a quiet season instead of being forced? It's kind of the sense of, it might take a little time for something to kind of grow, or it needs a rest, or germinates like seeds, for example. I've, at some point in my varied offerings in my life, I've run some after school clubs, and children, it was for sewing. They used to get so frustrated about not being able to create this perfect thing, and the idea that things take time, that we can't just, my favorite metaphor I would say, but you can't just chuck ingredients of the cake into the oven, shut it, and then open it, and then it's going to be perfectly decorated cake. It just takes time for new things to kind of, things to learn, or skills to be learned, or yeah. So I'm just wondering what is coming up for you.
I think for me, if I reflect on my food forest, which is maybe an example that's the closest to my heart, is I feel like I almost got a download in some way that this is a model that will work. This is a model that can help society and can bring change and can bring nourishment and can bring connection, and I just expect it to just work. But actually planting forests take a long time, watching trees grow take a long time, bringing community together takes a long time. And if I reflect now, maybe, when I had this download vision, whatever you want to call it, 2 years ago, now been on this journey for 2 years, the way it has evolved and what it has come to be about, over my 2 year sabbatical, my rest period, is more than I could have even dreamed it to be. So it is taking that, even though you want this thing to just be, and to come into being, it is taking that time and allowing it to be, rather than forcing it into being, I think is my example.
Yes, it does take time. We've got from Elle, a palette project which needs a pause. Yes. I get so many ideas. I can't tend to them all at the same. And then creating, innovating in a space of peace and love. Yes. I love what you said, that our letter, because where does it come from? Right? The way that speaks to me comes from, if it comes from a heart. Yeah. Yeah. I'm also very conscious of time, so I'm going to try to move on through next few slides. So let's move to growing. Growing begins as a nudge, right? The place where it comes from, perhaps new pattern emerging, or new partner, a better question we might want to ask. Maybe we might want to have a short check-in that changes the tone of the whole meeting. Maybe courageous questions or curious minds. Ultimately, we are not here to scale the seeds. We are here to tend them. The question is, what small new shoot is worth tending in your life?
And Julie says our younger generations Absolutely. For her, it's her niece and her nephew. And, you know, I think if we reflect on your work, Ivana, with schools and the schooling systems, my work with food forests at schools, I think focus on the younger generation is so, so important. So thank you for bringing that in. And Violetta, people who care and are ready to engage. Absolutely. I think there are so many people out there who care, and so many people out there who are willing and ready to engage, but creating the space, creating the platforms like this beautiful eco-civilization platform is exactly what we need to be doing. So thank you for that.
I love that. And I love how those two things that have come in terms of answers, our younger generations and people who are ready, care and ready to engage. And I think often in my work, we call it WOW, WOW in education, and is supporting the people who always seems to be ready and do care. It's just sometimes don't know how to move from one paradigm into different paradigm way of being. And definitely like with WOW and with Michelle's work in food forests and this circle that we are sharing with you today, it is that bridge, it is that map of the field, it is what are the small ways we can move from one way of operating, one operating system to a different operating system, is kind of that bridge that we are creating. So yeah, beautiful, thank you. And that kind of leads us to this slide where we talk about one small helpful change. In nature, small changes upstream shift the whole downstream. This supports disruption. This supports the disruptions needed of the current systems in loops they're on, these closed loops that appear to be on, or patterns, and kickstart the spiral into action for change. From there, we have opportunity to observe the effects of those small changes. And small changes offer gentle change that and it helps this great, this consistency of small incremental changes. And it supports the system field itself and everyone in it to adapt to the change and align with the nature's rhythm. It's one spiral at a time. Because often, I don't know about you, I see there's a lot of calls for big actions, and they're hugely disruptive, too scary for people to even contemplate and take those big, huge steps. And I think nature will do those if we haven't listened to the smaller calls. So we get called, they're like little whispers. And I suppose we are getting to have ears for those earlier on before the nature starts rumbling a bit more noise. So question is, what single change will you try this short season? And you get to choose what your season is, whether that is a week or fortnight or a month or a term or a moon cycle. What could you perhaps look to do?
I think for me, it's putting myself out there more, being willing to put myself out there more. I think, maybe to Violetta's earlier comment of people who are care and ready to engage, I feel like I care a lot and I'm ready to engage, but I haven't quite taken that step of really putting myself out there. And I think I'm ready for that. So I think that's my commitment.
Yeah, for me, I've for a long time just lived in this flow, or let's just see what happens. but I have realized that actually there is nature's kind of framework for this and seasons that support knowing that, oh yeah, it's a winter season, it's a spring, or this is the pathway from seed to the fruit. So it's looking at identifying maybe some pathways as a kind of safety, kind of creating the safe kind of environment for myself to follow the pathways that can support, within which I can perhaps create the greater change that I want to do, I suppose. What else have we got? We've got
Rajni has said, be in the moment. And that's so hard, right? When we've got so many moments in the past and in the future pulling at us all the time. It is really hard to be in the moment. So I love that commitment. It is a hard one. Violetta has said, have more rhythm and predictability in my life. I like that. I like that. I think we often do release to the flow, but actually setting a bit of rhythm for ourselves does allow for some predictability, some structure. So that's a great one. Liliana has said, focus on the simple things first. I love that. I love that. I think our human minds love complexity. We see a complex problem and we get so excited. It's so complex. But actually just focusing on simplicity often helps. And actually, I pulled a card. One of the cards I pulled this morning was simplicity. So Liliana, you are definitely attuning to my vibes. And Julie has said that she is agreeing with Rajni and trying to be a bit more in the moment.
Yeah. And I think this gives us a clue. All these answers give us a clue. They don't come just out of nowhere. Those answers come from nature. The true resonance of what's true, what will serve us best. It is being in present, because in presence we can best respond to what's going on. So that's why if there is anything that goes catastrophic, for example, communities do know how to come together. Like, it is inbuilt in who we truly are, right? It's inbuilt in our system. It's also inbuilt in our system that the simplicity or small steps actually, and consistency of those and rhythm of those too will create greater sort of change and support us much better. So I love how nature speaks through us. I think it's really, really, really beautiful. So we're nearing to an end, promise. So really, this kind of slide is all about looking at harvesting what we've learned today. But I think, and we can, but you've shared with us, and I really want to thank you for this. There's so much words of wisdom through what you've shared. And we are really grateful, both Michelle and I, because these sort of circles only really work if there is interaction at this level. And I'm super surprised. I don't know about you, Michelle, how much I was really worried how difficult this might be, getting responses through messages. And I based it on my system that finds it hard to write. I find it much easier to speak. So I'm really grateful to be in company of people who have found a way to speak to us through the messages. So I'm just going to share the next slide with us. We're going to share the PDF of this with you and take it away. And this is just, you can just draw it if you like. I've really enjoyed creating this, but you don't have to use it. Being able to check in with ourselves on regular basis, whether that is, moon circles that you join or communities that you join through your grief network, Julie, or any of our communities that we are part of, checking in with each other or ourselves, first of all, and looking and mapping out where our field is, where our energies are, what are we tending, what is, composting, what might be needing a rest, or what might be emerging. It's a really helpful way towards not feeling overwhelmed, and it certainly has supported me. And even when I shared a little bit of that with my husband this morning, gosh, I never thought about that. If I took a moment to just take note where things are, that might help my overwhelm, not being so overwhelmed, because actually I don't have to tend to every one of those things, because some things are just composting, that's just releasing. Resting is just resting. I don't have to, there's only one out of three things perhaps I need to tend to. And suddenly thinking I've got all these three different things, actually I only got one, it reduces the sense of overwhelm. And I think it's proved to be quite a helpful tool if you want to sort of use that term towards that. Michelle, would you like to add anything to that?
I guess just as we're coming to the end of our section, just a huge thank you to everyone. Really appreciate you looking with us, using the forest as a framework of a way to see ourselves as part of a system, as a living system. And I have loved being in community with you, and just am so appreciative to Violetta and Eco-Civilization for creating these platforms for us to come together in community to share and to heal. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. And absolutely. And just to sort of, I echo what Michelle said. And I think what my hope for whoever gets to listen to this webinar, and for you as participants, and for me and Michelle too, to remember that there's a lot more we can do than we thought we could. We are nature, and we have the power of the nature running through our veins and through our hearts. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ivana and Michelle, for taking us through this rooted resonance experience. If anybody's got questions or comments, please, Rajni, go ahead.
So Michelle and Ivana, first of all, thank you so much for such an elaborative, interactive session, I would say that. I think this is one of its own kind of session we ever held. I don't think we have had such kind of interaction before. So thank you so much for bringing in this kind of uniqueness to our session. And I want to ask you a question which I believe can be everybody's question. Since we were talking about social circles, people who matter us, where do you see the role of giving benefit of doubt, since it's a form of empathy, to the extent that you do not fool yourself in your experience? I mean, very practical, very pragmatic. I think we all have been in that space where we kept giving benefit of doubt to the extent that we realize that we are fooling ourselves.
I love that question, Annie. Such a good question. Absolutely. And that resonates with me so very much. Rule of three. Sorry. I call it rule of three for me. Is I have experienced the sense of, just, like that they're doing the best they can. That was my thing. Like, they're doing the best they can. So I use that excuse for other people. They're doing the best they can. And actually, I realized that there's a role I play in that. That if there hasn't been a change that honors both their and my energy, or in inner groups, then I have been called to courage towards honesty, that actually say, this is not working for me, and look at incrementally what I can ask. What do I need? There is something else I need in this, because this doesn't work for me. So being able to ask what I need when something doesn't work, rather than just, oh, well, this is just the way they are, and they're never going to change, whether that is one person or whole community, for example. We've got more power than that, you know, asking questions, or asking where do they come from, try to understand where they come from. Perhaps I might learn something, maybe put aside some of my beliefs, meeting them, yeah, kind of exploring from different angles and in different ways. That's what I would say to that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I would just add, you know, from my perspective, curiosity, you know, whether you're giving others the benefit of the doubt or yourself the benefit of the doubt, keep asking the questions, you know, and be, I want to say, have courage in your questions. So yes, give the benefit of the doubt, but be willing to ask the catalytic questions, the hard questions, you know, to help yourself or the other kind of settle that doubt, for sure.
This makes sense. Thank you so much.
And I would add, train yourself to be able to handle them.
Agree. I agree without question, because as soon as you ask that a catalytic question, you say, oh, I wasn't sure if I was ready for that catalytic question. So absolutely, it helps us to grow too.
Yeah.
Our own resilience. We talked about resilience, didn't we, earlier on? Annie talked about that. This is how we grow our resilience.
Right. And I think our apprehension is we don't want to burn the bridges.
Yeah.
We don't want to burn the bridges.
Oh,
so
you
we
don't
keep giving the other party.
Yeah. Don't shake.
Absolutely.
When they say don't shake the boat,
Yeah.
it's okay to shake the boat. It's good to
Okay,
shake
to
the
shake the boat.
Yeah.
I think if we think about it in terms of a whole ecosystem, that, you know, I always believe that our triggers are our teachers. And so these people that challenge you on, you know, the benefit of the doubt are probably some of your greatest teachers. And they play still a super valuable part of the whole ecosystem. And so we can, you know, what they offer us in terms of our own personal growth is the compost that helps the whole yourself grow and also helps the whole forest thrive.
That's so true.
Victoria, I believe. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
What I want to add to that, absolutely, because and it's not just people, it's just circumstances, you know, experience that Michelle and I have had, Michelle's electricity, this and that. I mean, and this imposter syndrome and this and that happens. It got to the point where it was so, like, you know, it could get really cross about, and you could, but also it gets so ridiculous that you almost have to laugh at some of those things, because there's this understanding what Eleftheria says. What is this about? Because I thought, oh my God, if she hasn't got electricity or Wi-Fi, I'm going to have to deliver this all by myself. And I was like, okay, that's really interesting. Okay, over to the universe, kind of is teaching me something in every single moment. So yeah, absolutely, great teachers. Any triggers are.
Right. I think there are two types of people in your life. One are enablers and others are teachers. Teachers are giving you lessons and enablers are giving you rewards. I mean, that's my way of looking at the people around me.
True.
Well, ladies, we've come to the end of another amazing webinar on mental health. And I wanted to thank you all for hanging around until the end. I want to thank all the listeners for listening in the replay. Gratitude to our three speakers, and also great gratitude to my fellow collaborators, Violetta and Rajni. It's always such a pleasure to co-create with you. And so we wish you all a really peaceful week further, and we'll see you at the next webinar, either for mental health or for also our leadership
challenged.
Leadership challenged. Thank you very much. See you at
Thank
the
you all
next
so
one.
much.